Hello, viewers, and welcome to Africa and Beyond Television Network. And this morning, we are focusing solely on 2030 agenda. Who are the preferred successors of Emerson Mnangagwa? So when you hear Emerson Mnangagwa running the 2030 agenda, it doesn't mean that he is the one who is planning to continue up to infinity. No, he is actually preparing some people to take over and to be in charge and control of the future. He has agreed with some of his allies that they have made this economy, but they have to take into cognizance the fact that these people, they've been corrupt for a very long time, which means the consequences will follow them if they do not plan ahead and appoint one of their own in the position of authority or the position of power. So that is very important, very critical to understand that at this point, Emerson and this team, they've agreed to use the sons, in quotes, the sons as the political shield of whatever they looted in the past or whatever crimes they committed in the past. So if you look at the in the past few days, there is one thing which has been happening. There is a deliberate setup of Collins Mnangagwa as the darling of the people. Everywhere you go, they have created a title for Collins, who is now being called Engineer Collins Mnangagwa. Why? It's because they are introducing him to the political arena more differently than any other person. So there are roles which have been shared to say those in the military, we have to deal with the military. Emerson Jr. is must focus solely on the intelligence or state security to make sure that they protect each other. So with one in the military, one in the state security sector, then they know that they are in full control. Then this main Collins has been set up as the next preferred successor. And the other one is being prepared to run the finance, which means all critical sectors will be under these people. And there is nothing else other person will have to do to stop that. So this 2030 agenda, some of the allies do not know what they are bargaining for, what they are fighting for, or what they are inviting onto their table. They are simply fighting because they simply want to preserve what they have looted. They simply want to preserve what they've been doing for a very long time. So interesting moments ahead within ZANU PF, and very sad situation for the generals because chokwadi ndechekuti vakafira mahara. Whatever they did, they thought that they were doing it for themselves. They initiated a coup solely so as to benefit. But right now, as we speak, they are no longer benefiting. They are not benefiting anything because they are actually losing. The real beneficiaries are now known. The real beneficiaries are now here, and they are gallivanting on each and every conference. Right now, they've been in charge of affairs in Bulawayo, and they are doing whatever they want in Bulawayo. There is nothing any other person is going to do to stop them. What are the options of the generals? The generals have limited options. If they work with Chiwenga, they're likely going to be disappointed because Chiwenga is slowly moving and not helping matters. So the only thing is for the generals to wake up and back Nelson Chamisa. That is the only thing. Everyone knows what happened in 2023. There is a clear evidence of what happened in 2023. The generals know. Which means if they want to rectify agenda, if they want to stop it, they can only stop it by going back to 2018 and 2023 and correct the mess. So one of the most important issues is to note Kuti. Who is after Priscilla Chigumba? Basically, Chigumba is not, Chigumba's life is not being threatened by the generals, as some of the people would insinuate. Why? They still want Chigumba one day to testify. So you can actually see that when you see threats against Chigumba, just know kuti kune vanhu vari kuda kuvhara nyaya dzavo dzavakaita, and they don't want her to be there because she might be a witness one day. Her testimony will then change around everything. So you can actually see that from now up to 2030, it will be an elimination exercise that anybody who want to hinder the agenda must be eliminated, must be stabbed. He must not live to the end. He must not enjoy life. Some will go into exile, some will be eliminated. So those comrades who think G40 still is still backing or is still strong, they are simply lying to themselves. Yes, they will make attempts, but those attempts are not going to yield anything. We have seen very critical people, close people. For example, let us talk about Robert Mugabe Jr. Robert Jr. was seen in this picture. There is Robert, there is Emerson Jr., there is Collins there. Robert has made several mistakes, but there is nothing they can do because they have to protect whatever they gained or whatever they looted or their father looted. They have to protect it, which means by being close to these boys and by working with these boys, they are doing exactly what these men, these old men, the 2030s, are trying to do. So number one, it's a matter of protecting their loot. Number two, it's a matter of protecting arrests and convictions because of what they did since Gokura Hundi. So not every person is exonerated from that. Almost everyone, including some generals. This is the reason why you see that the generals are in trouble because they've committed heinous crimes since 1980 and documentations are there, which means the arrest of one person will then start to involve others. So this is the reason why this political setup is very difficult to navigate. If Nelson Chamisa is to be president, he will need to use much wisdom. I'm glad that he's already doing so. I'm glad that he's already making some serious conversations, serious concessions about what must happen, what must be done. Things are being put onto the table. Plans are being set up. Agreements have to be made with the power brokers because you cannot actively get into this setup without having an agreement with some quotas. So there are areas where you need to compromise a little bit, but tighten on the other areas, key areas. So you will see that this agenda is serious. The preferred successor is Collins Mnangagwa. In the past days, they have introduced him fully to the ZANU PF people, and during the conference, he was then introduced to some quarters to say, uyu ndiye wamunofanirwa kufamba naye nekushanda naye. So as I said, Collins is tipped kuti anga achita take over as the president. Emerson must focus on the intelligence or state security. Then the other guy, army, will focus on the military, which means tobva umwe mfana uya obva akura ari finance who is being prepared in that portfolio. What it means is you are going to have a dynasty leading the entire country in all critical sectors, assisted by bootlickers and S-lickers. So when you see this happening, vana tongai baba vaya vanenge varipo vachingoimba tongai baba kusvikira ndati. So all these people vamuri kuona vese ava vachimhanya ne2030 agenda vamwe vese ava, it's not because they are not ambitious. They are ambitious, but they've been warned. Guys, kune jere riri kuuya kumberi. So it's no longer no more politics happening right here. It's now a do or die. This is the reason why it's very difficult for the generals to initiate a coup, because that coup is going to be met with mass resistance. 100% mass resistance. Which means chinotombotsva. But there is an easy way to get into power. And I hope and believe that Chamisa and his allies, they will utilize that opportunity. There will be attempts to stop the 2030 agenda. And the person who is going to be vigilant enough will take advantage of that resistance of 2030 agenda to then fill the vacuum. Because at this point in time, the seat is empty. There is the country is on autopilot. Hakuna munhu ari kutyaira nyika. So it will need Chamisa to take advantage of that. And which means you have to actually change strategy, change the way he has been doing things. But the moment Chamisa turns things upside down, it will take the much less time than anybody is expecting right now. Because people are calculating to say, if Chamisa changes the strategy and starts to do something new, how many years is it going to take? It's not going to take years. That will be the shortest thing to happen. If Nelson Chamisa changes his strategy, he is going to take the shortest time ever in the history of Zimbabwe to get into power. It will not need serious schemes, because it will simply take one bold decision to change strategy, and everything else will turn around, everything will change. So this conference has been very interesting, and you can actually see that every time these children stood up, every time pavafamba, they were being celebrated. But if you look at the general, he was isolated, lonely, and nothing was happening on his side. No one was even looking up to him, because his comrades were not there at this conference. So as for the general, my view is that the general is a man who is not going to fully utilize the opportunities he got. Because the only way the general could have done something influential is when he was working to uplift Nelson Chamisa to the position of power. Not doing so is a disaster, because the ZANU PF general Walasina Chavo, Mnangagwa has solidified his position within ZANU PF. Vakomana, the boys, they are now fully in charge of ZANU PF affairs, all provinces, which means at this point in time, there is nothing the general can do without agreeing with Nelson Chamisa. So they must put in place a transition that is going to be led by Nelson Chamisa, which will then bring fair, credible elections. And failure to do so is a disaster. So anybody who wants to save this country will have to spearhead the ascension of Nelson Chamisa, because there is clear and enough evidence to make that happen without making resistance, or without causing resistance from the dynasty. So izozozo munhu achashinga kuti no, enough is enough, is the person who is going to change things. But without Nelson Chamisa, 2030 agenda is on. It has been proven, because since the departure of Nelson Chamisa from the front, there is chaos everywhere. They are now focusing on each other. And that has given Nelson Chamisa ample time to prepare, ample time to work on other strategies, ample time to work with real people and genuine people. And right now, I can tell you this. Nelson Chamisa now has a better team than in 2018 and in 2023. God always provides people with ideas to take this nation forward. So my message continues to say, let us rally around Advocate Nelson Chamisa. I have seen so many attempts to scandalize him. I have seen so many attempts to label him a weak man. No, he's not. Sometimes you have to know when to step aside and allow some things to happen. Then you come back. Recess is always important. Hapasi pese pekuti unoramba uchingoti ngatirambe takangodzvanya. No. Totangira papi ipapo. So you would see that Team Chamisa at this point in time is much stronger than any other day. Nelson Chamisa is now the strongest politician in the history of Zimbabwe at this point. We'll be waiting to see interesting moments ahead, and we'll continue to fight for change. We'll continue to speak against inhuman treatment of our people. But here are the key takeaways. There is a consensus within the 2030 camp that Collins must take over. He is the preferred successor of Emmerson Mnangagwa. But is that going to be a straitjacket? Very difficult to tell. At this point in time, they have to rely on Emmerson Mnangagwa achieving 2030 agenda. Because if he fails on the 2030 agenda, then it becomes a problem. But the boys are being set up to take over the leadership. They are being prepared. They are being taught everything. And very interesting to see how everything is unfolding. And as we continue to move forward, you would understand Kuti 2030 is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. So let us go and see who is going to emerge victorious within ZANU PF. So one of the key issues is that how old are these boys? I think these boys, if I'm not mistaken, they were born around 1987, which means 97, 2007, 2017, 2027, they will be ready even to be elected as president. So if the 2030 agenda fails, you are likely going to see Mnangagwa endorsing him as the next presidential candidate. All this 2030 halabaloo which is happening, there are two things. It's either Mnangagwa will go for a third term, which he is planning to rig, then leave power to Collins, or he will simply declare Collins as his successor within ZANU PF. So if he is to count years from now up to 2027 or 2028, there is a great possibility yekuti vakuru vese vari kurwisana navo, possibly the general, who is the only threat at this point in time within ZANU PF, are active is the general, which means patinondosvika kuna 2030 kuna na 2027 vanenge vasina power necontrol. Imagine a conference yakaita sei presided over by Emmerson Mnangagwa in 2027. Definitely is going to elect someone like Collins as the successor of Emmerson Mnangagwa, and nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. Hakuna mnanosimudza chioko kana kuita sei. Which means the generals have the shortest possible time to act, but they are limited. They have to be a justification from ED and this team for them to make a move. Because vakatoita mistake kudhara pakapera ma-elections. Dai takaziva haichashande ma-generals. dai takaziva haichashande because you had an opportunity to rectify problems. But whatever which is happening, very important, the ambitions of the general are very important because they are going to set what we require and what we need as a people so as to prepare ourselves for the future. So very interesting moments, very interesting developments at this point in time. Just know that this man right here is being set up to be the successor of Emerson. He has been put in strategic places. He is going around achiita zvinhu zvakasiyana siyana across the country. He is moving at a different speed yaari kufamba nayo, meeting structures, meeting provinces, meeting leaderships, doing all sorts of things to outmaneuver others. And it will be an open contest, the generals versus the new generation. The major question will be, muchaita sei zvamaiti nyika ino haitongwi nevasina kuenda kuhondo? Vauya vakomana vasina kuenda kuhondo ava, muchavaita sei? And the generals do not have answers, which means they will have to turn to one person to save themselves. They will have to turn to Chamisa. That is the only way. So whatever which is happening, Nelson Chamisa is the real deal. We can't be led by the dynasty. We can't be led by clueless people who know nothing about resuscitating the economy of Zimbabwe, who don't have ideas to resuscitate the economy. The only thing they are fighting for is for themselves. But will they win? Personally, I doubt. So this is it. Let us meet in other episodes as well as other broadcasts.